Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampadhrita Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Sirasha Namah. Revered Swamiji's and dear devotees, thank you to Swamiji for his nice words of welcome and introduction. And before I begin my talk on the subject of Maya, as requested by Swamiji, I will just briefly talk a little bit about the center in Fiji and some of the activities. The Fiji Center was started in 1939. And among the major activities, we have a high school with close to 1,000 students. It's a day school, co-education. A vocational training center focusing on agriculture training to farmers. We go on the field and train the farmers. They don't come to us. That's something different. A medical center, Sharda Medical Center, started in 2012. Totally free services to the people who are needy. We give free consultation, free nursing services, free medicines to about 400 patients a week. And then whenever there are cyclones and floods, we do extensive relief works. And it's a registered charitable trust, very well recognized in Fiji and respected for its services there. We have very good connection with the community and the government. And then talking about this particular project, so we didn't have a temple when we proper temple when we went to Fiji in 2008, and that place used to get flooded every time the river came up. So we decided to relocate to a school, and instead of building a temple, a traditional temple of worship, we said, I have 1,000 students coming to me, and if we can impart some good values, education, and religion and spirituality to them, that itself will be a nice worship of Sri Ramakrishna. So we designed a temple with the help of an architect who is the heritage architect of the Sydney Opera House. He is very well trained in sacred architecture and a great devotee. So we designed something very unique. It's called a Universal Meditation Center. The whole philosophy of meditation is built in the architecture. So if I took and explained to you the building, I would have explained to you the philosophy of meditation. As Swamiji said, we have students who are Hindus, Muslims, and Christians mainly, so we decided to have some provision for all of them. For Hindus, Sri Ramakrishna Mission and Swamiji are there. We have a beautiful photo of Christ in meditation. And for Islamic students, we reached out to the Muslim community and got them involved, and with their consent, we put one of the 99 names of Allah in the Quran, the 51st name, Al-Haq, means the truth. And of course, we had to get the permission from headquarters. It's something new, and we did all the homework and got the approval. And later on, the General Secretary, Swami Tadananda Maharaj, came and did the inauguration. The Archbishop of the Catholic Church and the Muslim leaders came. It was a wonderful event. But apart from the building and the features that Swamiji has mentioned about the sunlight when the sun rises on 18th of February, it comes through a slot and then it just totally engulfs the photo of Sri Ramakrishna. The sun worships in one day. That's how we designed it. It was a very tricky, challenging thing, as you can say. But later on, we found that the sun moved to Swamiji and Christ and Mother, and all. That was not in our plan, but that was in their plan. So the divine architect has his own plans. But more interesting than that is what happens in that meditation center. So every day in the morning at 8:30, the students of all denominations come, and I take them through a process of guided meditation. And it's very, very interesting to see all of them sitting together, meditating on their own ideal. And I think that for 5 years, if they receive such training, they would never get swayed by any fanatical ideas, because out of their own experience, they have seen that they can all pursue their individual spiritual goals in harmony. So much about the meditation center. I would invite you to come to Fiji, and we'll be very happy to show you all that. And yes, so Swamiji visited Fiji recently. I discussed with an idea about how we can leverage digital technology to take the message of Vedanta to people in all corners of the world. Now we are all connected and interconnected through all the smartphones and all that. How can we provide very high quality, engaging teachings of Vedanta so that they can access this rather than coming all the time. It's not possible for them to reach out to us. At least the introduction work gets done then. So I'm here in Fiji, in US, with that idea of visiting some 10, 12 centers, meeting our Swamis who have been engaged in this broadcasting or preaching of Vedanta for decades, get their ideas and thoughts and feedbacks and comments and involvement, and together how we all Swamis and devotees and nuns can work together and put up a wonderful platform from which Swamiji used to use the word broadcast the message from up there across the world. So I will return after doing a tour of US, and maybe at that time I will have some more ideas to share what I gathered and all that. Coming back to this idea, the topic of Maya. Why Maya? We are all in Maya. Such is the power of Maya that we don't know that we are in Maya. So Sri Ramakrishna would teach us how to pray. And he would say, when you go to the temple, when you go to God, you say, pray for devotion, pure devotion. And at the same time pray that he does not delude us with his world bewitching Maya. Devotion we can understand, but we never think about asking the Lord not to delude us with his Maya. We see that when Lord Ramachandra asked his devotee, great devotee Hanuman, for a boon, that wise devotee Hanuman, smarter, intelligent, more intelligent among the intelligence, Buddhi Matam Varishtham, he said the same thing, may I have pure devotion to thy lotus feet, and may I never be deluded by thy world bewitching Maya. But even men of realization, saints and sages, sometimes forget that, and they want to experience that Maya. So let me tell two stories about, this is, one of them is from the Bhagavatam, section 12, chapter 9, the vision, the experience of Maya by sage Markandeya. So the sage and illumined and enlightened being was meditating in his hermitage, engaged in austerities and tapasya, and the Lord Vishnu, Narayana, visited his ashrama, was very pleased with his devotion and austerities, and offered him a boon. And the sage said, "Oh Lord, I am very happy with the offer, but I would like to experience your Yogamaya, that power by which the one becomes many, the conscious appears, the universal being appears as individual beings." The Lord smiled and he thought within himself, people pray to me to be freed from Maya, and here is somebody who is asking me to have an experience of his Maya. So the Lord went away, and the sage engaged himself in tapasya. One day he was sitting on the bank of the river, and it began to rain. There was a tremendous storm. The water rose, kept on rising and rising, so much so that it flooded his ashrama. And the water level kept going higher and higher and drowned and covered the whole mountains and earth. In that pitch darkness, he was being tossed up and down, buffeted by these waves, bitten by these aquatic creatures, suffering, one moment happy, suffering, full of fear and pain. And this was going on for a long time, what appeared to be thousands of years. And in that pitch darkness, as he was suffering, suddenly he saw a banyan tree on a mound, on a hill. And he saw that there was light coming from that tree. He approached nearby and he saw that on one of the leaves there was a beautiful child lying there, light radiating in all directions, illuminating the darkness, dispelling the darkness. And you might have seen that beautiful photo of a child lying on a banyan tree with one of the toes stuck in his mouth, sucking onto that. That picture comes from that Purana. So as he approached the divine child and wanting to talk to him, as the child breathed in, the sage got sucked in like a little mosquito through his nostrils into the body of the sage. And then, to his great surprise, he found that he is sitting in his old ashrama prior to that flood. Everything else is normal. He said, wow. He was totally taken aback. One moment I am there in this vast flood, and next moment I am sitting in my ashrama. And as he was thinking, the next moment he again gets tossed out into the ocean. And he is there again suffering and in that water. And then he again approached the Lord and he said, did the Lord disappeared, and he found that he is in his ashrama. So the Lord gave him an idea, an experience of that Maya. While he never went and left the ashrama, yet he went through the tremendous experience of in that flood waters. Likewise, we as individual souls are never separated from the divine being, and yet because of the Lord's Maya, we have this experience of being embodied, being born, and being tossed in this ocean of samsara. Well, the sage wanted that experience, and the Lord gave him one. It's not a maybe it's not a nice prayer to ask for, but then even the wise Narada also had that same problem. So one day he was going together with Lord Krishna, and an idea came in his mind to ask the Lord, "What is Maya?" And the Lord said, "Okay, you will have an experience of it." So one day they went out for a walk towards the desert, and Sri Krishna said, "I'm a little thirsty. Can you please go and get me some water?" I said, "No problem. Let me go to a village and fetch some water for you." So he went to the village, knocked on a door. The door opened, and a beautiful young girl stood in front of there. He forgot all about his Lord, who is thirsty, waiting for water, and he started talking to her, and he fell in love with her. And then, the conversation continued, and he asked the father for the hand of that girl, and he got married. He had children, he had a nice family, everything is going on. And again the flood comes. The flood is common. The flood came, and the water rose, and these people tried to escape, holding the children and his wife. The strong currents tore away the child, one child, another child, and his wife, and he himself was tossed away in the flood waters to the bank. And he woke up because somebody called him. Sri Krishna is there. "My child, my son, what are you doing? It has been quite a half an hour, and I'm still waiting for water." And he said, "What? Half an hour? It has been like 12 years for me, and to you it is only half an hour." So this is Maya. In a Puranic form, it is explained how the impossible appears to be possible. The interesting thing that we have to keep in mind is that this is a power of a divine being. Mama Maya Duratya, Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. And the one who wields that power, Mayadhish, the Lord of the Maya, he is the one controlling. And we are all under his Maya, Maya Adhin. So this subject of Maya has been is also called avidya, has been expounded in most of our scriptures. The theory of Maya is one of the pillars of the Vedanta philosophy, and explained in various ways. We find lots of references in the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, Mahasharda, and Swamiji. Swamiji dedicated a couple of his lectures on the subject of Maya, Maya and the conception of God, Maya and freedom. And of course, many young people read that and try to understand. When you say understand, we try to have an intellectual understanding, conception of it in our own mind, something that is difficult to even comprehend, but they try to explain to us in as best as they can. So there was this young man who had read Swami Vivekananda's teachings, lectures on Maya, and his name was Manmathanath Ganguly. You'll find a reference to this in the reminiscences of Vivekananda. I would like to refer to that particular uh, uh, incident there. So imagine Belur Mutt, Swamiji is there in his last days. One evening, this young man comes to visit Swamiji, all both sitting on a bench outside in the yard. And Swamiji is in a gracious mood, and he says, "Well, if you've got a question, you can ask me." And this young man says, "Swamiji, I have read your lectures on Maya. I've tried to understand, but I have not been able to make any head and tail out of it. It will be nice if you can please explain that to me." Swamiji said, "Why don't you ask some other question?" And this young man says, "No, I think that is the question that I want. And if a Nava Brahman like you cannot dispel this ignorance in me, then I would think this would remain a closed book for me in this life." So Swamiji started talking to him, explaining him Maya, and you can visualize the situation. Guru and the Sishya are sitting, Guru is teaching, and the Sishya is listening with full attention. And this young man, Manmathanath Ganguli, then gives his experience of it. So it's not a conceptual thing. The concepts were ideas in the lecture which he tried to understand. He's trying, Swamiji gives him an experience of the Maya. There's a lot of nice ideas embedded in there which we'll discuss. So this young man narrates that as Swamiji spoke, he could understand and follow the flow of the explanation. But as he noticed that he had a strange experience, he says that everything around him, whatever he was seeing, seemed to vibrate. And he gives an example, just like if there's a big fire and you look over the fire and things, trees on the other side tend to quiver and vibrate. He said something like that. And he said he was aware of his unique experience. He could still feel Swamiji's, hear him and try to follow his reasoning. And then he says that I felt a little vibration in my mind, and suddenly the whole world, the outside world, disappeared. And he felt that he was part of that universal ocean of consciousness in which Swamiji was another wave. And that vast difference between the Guru and the Shishya had suddenly disappeared. Both were made of the same substance of consciousness. And he thought, wow, so this is Maya, and this is what Swamiji was trying to explain to me. So, as the mind came down a little bit, then he tried to reason. So, this whole world appears in 1 minute and then it disappears another minute. So, all this that Swamiji has been teaching about Daridra Narayan Seva and about establishing the mission and all that, that is also in Maya. All his activities and teachings are also in Maya. So, when his mind came down a little bit into a lower plane, he said to Swamiji, so Swamiji, so I understand this Maya, but everything is in Maya, including all the activities that you are preaching. Then his mind came down to the normal plane, and suddenly he felt that both of them were not of the same substance. There was a vast difference between the two. And at that time, Swamiji understood that he had returned to his normal consciousness. And Swamiji said, yes, what you have said is true, but I am playing with Maya. And if you want to get out of this Maya, go into a mountain cave and merge yourself in tapasya. So when I read that, I thought and I wondered, look at Swamiji, he's not just an orator or preacher just like any other. He was playing with Maya. Such was his capacity that by his wish he could uplift a person's mind to such a level where this whole objective world of names and forms disappeared and could give him an experience of that universal consciousness in which everything had merged into one. When we see Swamiji, we see his physical form, we read his lectures and we appreciate, wonder at his brilliant intellect. But I sometimes wonder if he could just at a wish give somebody an experience of this transcendental reality, where would he normally dwell, even though he was in his physical form? Definitely, he was far greater than we can even conceive of him to be. So, Swamiji says this, so we will use this example. Swamiji says, Maya is not a theory, it's not about illusion, it's a statement of fact. It's a statement of fact of what the world is. Or put in another way, it's a statement of fact of what we experience depending on what is the level of our consciousness. The human consciousness can move. We see in the life of Sri Ramakrishna how in one moment he's sitting in the midst of everyone talking, in the next moment he will go into samadhi, totally oblivious of the outside world, but totally experience the divine consciousness. And he would come down and say, state things that are not available to us through our senses. Things like, my divine mother alone has become the 24 cosmic principles and all living beings. Throughout the gospel, he tells us. He shows a deeper insight that behind the names and forms is the divine power, whom he calls Kali, or the divine mother. She is the one who is present in everything. She is consciousness, she is the mind, she is the intellect, and she has assumed these names and forms that we see. How we differ from them is that we are locked in this human plane of consciousness. We are born here, we live in this plane, and we are sort of constrained in this. While sages, saints, they have been able to uplift their mind, they develop that capacity through tapasya. So, Maya is a statement of fact of what we experience depending where our plane of consciousness is. When Sri Ramchandra asked Hanumanji, "How do you see me?" He gave a beautiful example illustrating that there are three planes of consciousness. He says, when I'm aware of myself as the body, then I look at myself as the servant and you are the master. Jiva buddhya, deha buddhya tu dasvasmi. When I consider myself as a jiva, then you are the whole and I'm a part of you. And when I consider myself as the Atman, then we are both the same. So, spiritual life is a conscious attempt to uplift our mind from this lower plane, the physical plane, through tapasya, through meditation, japa, austerities, to purify this mind, chitta shuddhi. And as the mind gets purified, it gets uplifted to another higher plane. Shuddha man, Sri Ramakrishna would say, becomes Shuddha buddhi, pure intellect, and at a high level, Shuddha atma. There is one thing, but the experiences of that has become many. So, which we can see in that experience of Maya which Swamiji could give to his disciple Manmadhana Gangoli. Swamiji also explains that this Maya is names and forms, or it is Desh, Kal, Nimitya, space, time, and consciousness. So, how do we understand this? This is a wonderful concept, a little bit of science, scientific way of understanding could be also there. So, imagine a prism with three sides, and let us say the three sides are time, space, and causation. And we all know that if we shine a beam of white light at an angle to one of the surfaces, the light passes through that, and when it comes out on the other side, it spreads out into a rainbow of 7 colors. People say 7, but really there's an infinite number of colors. 7 is our convention of understanding it. So, if we conceive of this time and space and causation as the framework through which we perceive the pure one consciousness, on the white light side, it is all unified in one. On the other side, with the colors, it breaks down into this whole worlds, all these planes of consciousness, Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, and all that. And we are in one of those planes. So if you imagine that we take a prism and shine that light on a wall, and you see a spectrum of colors around there, and imagine one ant on that wall. If the ant is in the blue beam, then it thinks that light is only blue. If it's another one on a higher plane, will think it's another. Its experience is different. What they experience depends on at what level they are. Likewise, there is this whole field or spectrum which perceived through time, space, and causation. When we are in the human plane, we see these worlds of name and form. And so long we are all similarly constituted at the same plane of consciousness, we all see the same thing. Other beings might be there in a different plane of consciousness, and they might call themselves, we might call them gods, and they have celestial bodies and all that. Brahma also has got another plane of consciousness, but we all are within this Maya. So Maya is a statement of fact of what we experience depending on what is the level of our consciousness. Having understood this, that there are many other dimensions of reality, that we are just caught in one of those planes, and this is how we are bound to our senses, bound to this body, bound to this mind, bound to this intellect, bound to this ego. But on the other side is this beautiful white light. But to go and experience that white light, you have to go beyond that prism on the other side, to the left-hand side, where that white light is experienced, can be experienced. So, in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Maya is defined as avidya, experience, ignorance.
This avidya is like a mirror, it turns everything topsy turvy. That which is pure consciousness appears to be impure, that which is full of bliss appears to be full of misery, that which is permanent appears to be changing. And so it's not just only a concept, it's the matrix, so to say, in which we move. All these beings, all these worlds are all constituted in that. But again, this all happens by the divine power of that being. And so, while it's very, very difficult to get out of this Maya through our own individual effort, the Divine Lord Himself comes in various incarnations and shows us the way to get out of it and to help us across this ocean of samsara. When we reach out to Him and receive His grace, then all this Maya is nothing more than some rainwater collected in the hoof of a cow. Bhava Goshpad Vari Yathai, in the hymn of Sri Ramakrishna that Swamiji composed. So, this, how to get over this Maya? First, we have to understand that we are in this terrible Maya, that we cannot be living here nicely, complacently. That there are higher levels of existence and worlds, and that our true home is not here in this world, but in that universal, infinite consciousness which is called Brahman. Then the question comes, how do we get out of it here? Of course, we make our own little effort, doing japa, dhyana, sadhana, and all those things, but a little bit of divine help is also necessary. And God comes for that particular purpose, to free us from this. Sri Ramakrishna says, those who take one step towards me, I take 10 steps towards them. That is available. That special offer is there from His side, but we have to take that first step and not wait for Him to take that 10th step, and then we'll take ours one. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, this divine Maya, Daivihi Esha Gunamahi, Mama Maya Duratya, Mameva Prapadhyante, Maya Metam Tarantite. This Maya is of divine origin. It's His Maya. Mama Maya Duratya, difficult to cross. Mameva Prapadhyante, those who surrender to Him, the Lord of the Maya, for them it becomes easier to cross this Maya. So, how do we reach out to them? How do we understand that and live in that spirit of surrender to Him? Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel repeatedly that when a person realizes the truth, he comes to understand that God alone is the doer. God alone is the doer of all activities. In ignorance, we think we are the doers. We have this ego, karatritva abhiman. And also we are the enjoyers, bhoktritva abhiman. This I and mine, ami, amar, ei, maya. So Sri Ramakrishna takes out all this philosophy and everything and makes it very, very simple. The sense of I, ego, in the sense of mind. This is how this divine Maya of the Lord entangles in this world. So within us, you will see that Swamiji also teaches us in various ways the real and the absolute man, the absolute and the manifestation, the real and the apparent man, the absolute and the manifestation. So in the Bhagavad Gita and the scriptures, they says there are two aspects of us. One is the real man, the Atman, of the nature of infinite existence, knowledge and bliss. And then there is this Jivatman. That Jivatman has become entangled in this body-mind complex. And his sense of identity depends at what level he is tuned at. For example, at sometimes he is at a very physical level. So if you ask somebody, who are you? He tells you the label that has been given by the parents. He tells you the age of the body, the height of the body, and the weight of the body. He talks about the body qualities which have been superimposed upon himself. Or sometimes he is identified with the mind. So he says, I'm happy or unhappy, I know, I don't know, I'm confused. Sometimes he's identified with his inner feelings or the intellect level where he says, I understand, I don't understand. And so this sense of identity or identification with the body-mind complex is what has entangled him in there. And with that, He says, I'm an enjoyer in this world, I'm a doer in this world. So that is his perspective of the world and himself. But there is another perspective from a person of realization, or from when God Himself comes into this world, how does He see the things? And it's good to have that enlightened, enlarged perspective of the whole thing. So we see this beautifully illustrated or explained when Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita gets a vision of the universal form of Sri Krishna. And in that he sees that before the war has even started, all these great warriors have been killed, and he sees this divine form in which all these various gods and goddesses are visible to him, and that vision totally overpowers him. And he stops and he asks, whom? Sri Krishna, who are you, this universal being? And what is your purpose? And Sri Krishna says, I am that I am the great time, Kalo Asmi. I am that universal time, engaged here in the process of destruction of the worlds. And even without you, Ritetvam, na bhavishyanti sarve, even without your agency, I have already killed all these people. Therefore, O Arjuna, tasmatam uttistha, therefore you arise, Yasholabhasva, enjoy the fame that will come to you. Jitva Shatrum, kill these enemies and enjoy this kingdom. Mayeva ete nihita purvameva, by me, all these warriors have already been killed. Mayeva, by me, ete these, nihita, totally destroyed. Purvameva, not in future but already in the past. Nimitti matram, you only be an instrument in my hands. So within this, Arjuna had in the beginning an idea that he was a great warrior. He will be the chief instrument and the outcome of the war will depend on him. And if people are killed, then the sin of killing and all those things will come to him. He had a strong sense of doership. I am the main instrument. But all that is suddenly put topsy-turvy, where the Lord says, look, I am the almighty time. I have set up this platform where these various warriors would be killed. Even without your agency, you see, a person feels very arrogant that something might not happen if he does not cooperate or is not part of it. Sri Krishna is saying, even without you, all these people have been killed. I have killed them, but you engage yourself in action and enjoy that fame that will come to you. It's a little tricky, I have not killed anyone, and then I will get the fame or the recognition for killing these great warriors. And he's saying, you are only an instrument. Nimitta matram bhava savyasachin. So, if we keep in mind this idea, this perspective, that behind this universe there is a cosmic power, that we are all various instruments in the hands of that cosmic power. That power does not consult us in any way what he or she wants to do. She is, in the Bengali song, Sakali Tumari Ichha, Ichha Mai Tara Tumi. Everything happens by your will. You are self willed. Not that she is asking us, we should do this or I should do that. So we have to totally surrender ourselves and tune our little egos and wills to that universal will. When we do that, things happen nicely and we say life is going smoothly. But if our wills are in pointing in another direction and the Lord's will is in a different direction, then we find completely all this chaos and things that happens. So this is how we can align our little egos, little desires, little wishes to the supreme beings, the cosmic will. Sri Ramakrishna explains all this very beautifully. He says, I and mine, Ami, Amar, this is Maya. He also gives a very simple, another definition, Kamani Kanchan, lust and greed. That is Maya, repeatedly. And you might say, how do we understand that? Well, we are all entangled with this body mind complex, this strong identification with this body. And this pegs us down at this human level, not allowing us to elevate our consciousness to a higher plane. So, lust and greed just more strongly reinforces this idea of our physical being. When we engage into physical pleasures and all that, then we are bound more strongly to this physical identity. Sri Ramakrishna says that when the Divine Mother plays this game, where we are her playmates, she has two aspects of the Divine Mother, Maya, Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. When God is gracious and wants to lead us away from this world to the divine abode, then He endows us with what is called Vidya Maya, in which we seek for spiritual truth, we have kindness and compassion, discrimination, devotion to God, and all those what are called the Devi Sampatti, the divine attributes listed in the Bhagavad Gita. And when He wants to let the play go on, then people are caught in lust and greed, calm, krodh, lobh, all these uh, attributes or qualities that bind us to this physical world more strongly. So we are all within the jurisdiction of this Divine Mother. And the way to do is to propitiate her and get her blessing and grace. Only then we can get out of this world of Maya, because that is her divine Maya. On our own, it is not it's on our own, it's very, very difficult. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna says that the Divine Mother is worshipped, so that she becomes gracious to us and lets us go through this world. I remember recently we were reading the life of Holy Mother, Swami Brahmananda, when Mother was in Varanasi, living very close to the ashrama. Swami Brahmananda was also there. So every morning he would go and make prostrations to the Mother from the courtyard. And one day when he went there, then the Holy Mother asked through Golokma to ask Raja Maharaj, why is it that people worship the Divine Mother? And Swamiji, for our instruction, also said that without her grace, unless she opens the door, no one can go through. These beautiful ideas that when we see how Sri Ramakrishna approached the Divine Mother, she is the mistress of the universe, she has created everything happens by her will, and how we have to approach her through devotion, through the spirit of surrender, so that she, out of her grace, opens the door for us to enter into the realm of our true divine nature. I find that there's a set of a philosophy, Kashmiri Shaivism. I do not know how many have read some of those books there, that more closely reflect some of the teachings and experiences of Sri Ramakrishna. And in there is a verse in the book Pratyabhijna Hridayam, where this divine Shakti, Chit, is the consciousness, Chiti is the power, the Shakti. She creates this whole universe, Swechaya, by her own will, on the canvas of her own self, not on something outside, not projecting outside, but within herself. She is the Vishwa Siddhi Hetu. She is the cause of the manifestation. So we are all within that part of the Divine Mother. And it's only through her grace that we can transcend that. So, and the verse is Shaivi Mukham Iha Uchyate. Okay, Mukham means the doorway. Shaivi means the power of Shiva. So, Divine Mother is the doorway through which we can cross this realm of Maya into the transcendental region, which is our own true nature. So, here we are discussing this idea of Maya. The idea behind this talk is to be always aware that we are within this realm of Maya, because we just forget this. And that we have to struggle to get out of it. If we don't do that, then we'll be just happy, trying to be happy in this world, and be successful in this world and all those type of things. So when the Divine Mother casts the net of Maya, then different people respond differently. And Sri Ramakrishna explains this with his homely parable. A fisherman went and cast a net out there, and there were four categories of fish. Some of the fish could see the net coming and they took off. The net did not touch them. They were the ever free, the Ishwar Kotis. And the net touched the water. Some fish understood that this net is a terrible thing. They struggled, they jumped, and one or two managed to jump out of the net, and the fisherman would scream, "A big one has escaped." There. So they become free, the mukta. The third category, they struggle and struggle, but maybe they don't succeed in this lifetime. But at least they are struggling. They are the sarthakas, trying to get out of the samsara of Maya. And the fourth category don't even know that the net has fallen. They bury their hand in the mud and think everything is safe. So it is necessary to be aware that this net of Maya is there. And that's why we are discussing this. Constantly be aware that this world is not our final abode, that there is a higher realm of existence or source from where we have to come, and the purpose of life is to attain to that. Call it God realization, call it self realization, call mukti, nirvana. That means we have to make an effort. Now, in our effort, God Himself comes to lead us in that way. And that particular manifestation of God, which is the very embodiment of compassion, is what incarnation is. Incarnation is also a manifestation of the divine power, Shakti, but it is one which is propitious, which is trying to lead us towards that supreme goal. And so, if we try to develop an understanding or a concept or framework where we are always mindful of it, how do we do that? So ideas are very good, stories are very good, parables are very good, but how do we hold on to that idea that we are all the time in this Maya? So let's do a mental experiment. So if I had to paint a picture on a canvas, so it's a two-dimensional canvas, and you draw a sketch on that. Now suppose I visualize a three-dimensional canvas, which would be like this room, space in three directions, and the images that will be there like statues. Now if I add another dimension to it, time, and then everything is moving. So it's a room, things are there, they're moving. So here we see this is the canvas in which the Divine Lord casts His image. And then you add another dimension to it, the dimension of consciousness, different frequencies. And this whole drama changes depending on what frequency we are tuned to. For example, here right now, there are lots of TV channels there. I get a TV and I switch to a particular frequency, a particular station appears. I change the frequency from the first one to the second one, the first frequency disappears, first channel disappears, and the next one appears. And there's so many in there, but we can experience the one to which our TV channel is tuned. Likewise, here and now, there are so many planes of consciousness. And we are tuned to a human frequency, and therefore we are experiencing this human world. If Sri Ramakrishna were here, he would be sitting in the midst of us, but his mind would tune to a high frequency and he would not be even aware of us, but he would be aware of something higher. And he might come and report that at that level, I saw the divine consciousness, which we call the Divine Mother. She has become anything and everything. And he might even go to another higher level where everything has been resolved to that one universal consciousness. The truth is here and now in one way, and yet not here and now in our experience of things. So it's not that we will realize God, or when we realize God, we go to some place called Vaikuntha or something. Sri Ramakrishna would experience the truth sitting in the midst, in that room in Dakshineshwar. Only his mind would transcend and lift to a higher level of consciousness where this physical world of names and forms will disappear. That type of experience which Swami Vivekananda tried to gave to his disciple. Or if you visualize that type of experience which Ramakrishna is constantly trying to get across to us through his various samadhis. Every time he goes, the physical world disappears. And when he does that, then the concept of time and space also gets lost. Sometimes he would come down and he would look at somebody and he say, I see you sitting there, but I do not know how long you have been there. Somehow that time and space concept gets deconstructed in there. So the truth that we are seeking for is here and now. The universal consciousness is here now, but it is covered by these names and forms. And in these names and forms, there are all these different frequencies of bandwidths of consciousness, you say. Different beings are living in those different bands. Those who are in the God level, they see gods around. Those who are in the human level, they see human beings around. Those who are at the ghost level, probably they see the spirits around. Yet everything is here and now in one way, and yet not accessible to us because our minds are locked in this human plane of consciousness. So, sadhana is that those disciplines by which we purify this mind, chitta shuddhi, and it ascends to higher planes of consciousness, and then this world disappears, just like one TV channel disappears and another one appears. Ultimately, everything gets merged in that ocean of consciousness. This is this divine play of the mother, where she has hidden herself and projected another world. So Swamiji says this is her play. He says this toy world would not be here. This play would not go on if we were knowing plays. But we must play blindfolded. Some of us have taken us the role. Some of us have taken the role of the rogue of the play, some heroes. But never mind, it's only a play. That's the only consolation. There are lions and tigers on the stage. They snap, but they can't bite. The world cannot touch our souls. So that is the perspective from an enlightened point of view. So this world is not real. The reality is something. It's a play. If you don't like it, then you go to the playmaker and say, can you please release us from this? But if you enjoy the play, then you can have as much as you want, as long as you want. So when we go through life with all these challenges, tough times and all that, if you keep in our mind that there is somebody who to whom we are the playmates, and if we approach them and if they're gracious, then everything can be sorted out. That divine being is not out there but in our own hearts. Sri Ramakrishna says the night watchman goes out with his torch. He lights up various people and things around. But if you want to see him, you have to ask him, can you please turn the light around to yourself so that I can behold your face? And if he's in good mood, he might turn it around and show that he resides what he looks like. Likewise, that same divine being resides in our own heart as that pure consciousness. His light shines out through our eyes and ears and the mind and the senses. And we see this wonderful world out there. But if we want to behold him, then we have to pray to him, can you please turn that mind around, that light around, and reveal yourself. And those who seek, those who want that, to them, the Lord Himself reveals. For that purpose, He has come as Sri Ramakrishna, as Mother and Swamiji, and all the galaxy of spiritual beings to help us that. And this is a idea or topic that we can try to understand intellectually. It's not something for intellectual understanding, but it's something to be transcended through an experience. And since it's the power of the Divine Mother, we have to pray to her wholeheartedly and sincerely to lift us out of this world, beyond these names and forms, and give us a glimpse of our true nature. So, let us all pray to the Divine Lord to give an understanding that we are in His Maya, that there is something more wonderful beyond His Maya, and that by His grace we can transcend this Maya and experience that state of infinite existence, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss. May the Divine Lord inspire us and guide us to that supreme goal. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.